How many people have you killed altogether?
There's more to me than this.
A saint's gotta be a sinner first, don't he?
Better make your peace.
I really, really, really liked the movie, and I thought you were great in it.
Sure.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is so your character, the arc kind of goes completely differently than I thought it was going to go. I thought you were going to be the kind of the typical like young punk upstart, but it ends up being a very sympathetic kind of empathetic role a little bit. And I was just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about it because it really didn't go the way I thought it was going to, and I really enjoyed it.
Interesting. Yeah, because I guess at the beginning it's set up to be the classic kind of Batman and Robin, or I mean, maybe that's a bad example, but yeah, the sort of young upstart who is challenged.
In a really aggressive way, and I was like, "Oh, he's a jerk."
Well, he is a jerk. He's definitely a jerk for sure. But I guess he's a jerk with a heart of gold.
Yeah.
But no, there's a sense perhaps that well, as he says in the movie, he kind of says, you know, oh, I'm not really a killer, I'm not really a murderer, I'm just doing this for now, kind of, you know, to earn a bit of money. And I think we can all kind of empathize with that, not with the murdering side, but with the sort of getting caught into a world that that you perhaps weren't born into, but you sort of fall into these patterns of behavior, and he's just kind of coasting, but perhaps deep down he hasn't yet been fully kind of changed by all the murders he's done. Somehow he still has a spark of humanity and of hope and of kind of goodness or of sensitivity, and he still has youth on his side. So there were possibilities for Kevin until he met his sorry end.
So what was it like working with Liam Neeson? I mean, it had to have been kind of, you know, this icon, right? Like probably one of the biggest icons working today, right? I can't really think of anybody that's more, you know, that's bigger than him at the moment.
I mean, from the second I met him to the last day we filmed, it was every moment was like a pinch me moment, really, because I mean, he's also just like very physically imposing because he's like quite big, tall, and like he used to be a boxer, so he's got these big hands and he's very handsome and charming, and he just has this presence. But I guess what's strange about him is that he has zero pretension whatsoever, like zero, the kind of diva ego that maybe you would associate with someone of that caliber of icon, as you say. And that was, I guess the most shocking thing, that once you got over your initial kind of hyperventilation of meeting like Liam Neeson, and then you start doing scenes with him, I kind of realized, oh wow, like he's just a very kind, nice man who is just very generous and takes himself out of the equation, you know, when a lot of people in his position would make it all about themselves.
I mean, maybe that's why also his career has lasted so long, right? I mean, I think anything he works with the same people. I know that he's worked with the director, Robert Loren, quite a few times. So what's it like when you go onto a set like that, though, and the director and the leading man kind of have this synergy from working together before? Like, does that make it easier for you to just kind of slip right in, or I don't know?
I think it can, yeah. I think with Liam and Rob, I think they just made one film before, but maybe they'd worked together in different guises previously. But I mean, Robert is such a laid back person. The atmosphere that he creates on set is so relaxed. And again, there was no it wasn't like him and Liam having all these in jokes that like excluded anyone else. Because Liam was a producer on the film as well. But so it was like they were just these both really lovely kind of leaders, benign kind of masters of the set. But it never felt like too much of a hierarchy or anything like that, or that they were the kind of ones in charge and we were the underlings, you know, waiting for decisions to be made. Robert always asked me, you know, to bring thoughts to scenes and to talk to him about what I thought that would be good for the character or good for the scene. So I loved that, and I loved him for that, and it was a great working atmosphere.
Well, also, I think one of the things that's rare about an action movie or this kind of movie is that it's very rare that you get a female bad guy, which I thought was great. And Kerry Condon was unhinged.
Not
awesome.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. What was it like working with her? Because she had just done the Banshees of Inisherin, and in some ways, this kind of reminded me a little bit of that movie. Like it had kind of the same, kind of the same vibe in some ways. Like where even though she's the villain, I still kind of in some ways had some sympathy for her, I guess, which is unusual for kind of a Liam Neeson action movie.
Yeah, and I guess that's just a credit to Kerry as an actress, as a performer. I mean, I don't think it's possible for her to phone it in, you know. She's just so committed, whatever she's doing, and she's so authentic and organic, and she thinks about things and takes it seriously. So I don't think she'd ever be one for just kind of, you know, throwing in some sort of hammy. She gives everything in her arsenal to the part, and yeah, the film is better for it. So that was really cool to watch and kind of see and notice how, yeah, she brought a lot of depth to the character.
One thing I want to ask you about your career after you did Game of Thrones and you had this amazing success quite young, I would imagine you were really young. I noticed you took quite a bit of time off. And I was just wondering kind of, because it felt like when you reemerged, you almost kind of came out as a different actor. Like I felt like not necessarily as a different actor, but just that I wouldn't. Also, because you'd grown up a lot and you were much older. I didn't, I think most of us, we didn't see you as Jeffrey anymore when you came out. I think it was, I think that time apart, you really started to miss the person. Then when they emerged, it's like, oh, it's like a completely different human in some ways.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking of it, because I guess, I mean, I would feel personally that I've changed quite a lot. I mean, everyone does from the age of 17 to 31. So I was about 17 when I started Game of Thrones. And yeah, I guess I was pretty green in a way on Game of Thrones, but at the same time, I'd been acting since I was about 8 as well.
Oh yeah. I remember seeing you in Batman Begins. Yeah,
right. So there was a sense when I got to Game of Thrones that I was like, oh, I've kind of reached a stage in my career, even though that's kind of crazy to admit at such a young age. Maybe I just felt this kind of draw to do other things for a while. Like I still had I set up a theater company back in Dublin with my friends who I met in university and college, and so I was still performing with them and performing on stage, but that was a much more different type of performance style to doing dramatic acting in front of a big camera. So yeah, I guess I kind of did change in many ways, and yeah, that's just how life goes. But now I'm just like so happy to be back in front of the camera, and I'm like filming a TV show at the moment in Europe, in the Netherlands and Belgium. And yeah, again, kind of a similar part, I guess, of like a ne'er-do-well criminal thug, but possibility to be redeemed. And I've been doing scenes with Colin Meaney, who's in the film as well.
Oh yeah, great, amazing actor.
So he's playing my dad in this TV show, and we've been doing night shoots, just driving around shooting bad guys, and I'm having the time of my life. I'd
love to go do shooting bad guys with Colin Meaney. I'm sure that would be.
Listen, he's a good guy to do it with.
One other thing I want to ask you, my last question for you: Do people still recognize you as Jeffrey? But I would imagine, I feel like people have to be though really affectionate when they see you, though, because I feel like in some ways that when a character is that popular, even though he's the villain, in some ways it becomes kind of part of your life. Especially if you watch it for like such a long time, for years and years and years, and you have an affection for the actor.
Totally. But I mean, in a way, I'm surprised that people still do recognize me, because I do look very different.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's still a Joffrey essence there in my kind of bone structure. But no, whenever, like, for instance, I was walking down my like very kind of anonymous residential street in London a few weeks ago. It was kind of like a highway, really, a motorway. And it was in the middle of the night, but someone drove up and said, "Are you Joffrey?" And they like hopped out of the car and like got a photo with me. And first of all, I was like, "How did you spot me?" You know, it's the middle of the night. I look very different, but it's always like this excitement, you know, this like joy. It's not like ever sort of like a negative reaction because they didn't like my character. It's just like,
I mean, I feel like people are smart enough to realize though it was acting.
thankfully they are. I mean, people ask me all the time, "Oh, do people bully you on the street? Do people, you know, send you hate mail?" Like, I've never experienced any of that. I mean, I know some actors do and have, but I guess there's something about Game of Thrones that it is so heightened and it is a fantasy show. Like maybe if you were on like a soap opera for years and years where no, everyone's, I always have nice interactions with fans, and yeah, it's always like, "You mother effer, you know, I hated you, but you know, you did a good job." So it's always kind of tinged with pride.